Hey everyone, James here, bringing you another review of an Italian genre film. Today going to be talking about Syndicate Sadists from 1975, directed by one of the Eurocrime greats, definitely in the Mount Rushmore, at least for me, Umberto Lenzi. And for me personally, I think Lenzi is very suited towards the polizioteschi genre, where a lot of it is just about, going all the way, maximal sleaze, maximal just action, maximal shamelessness. And so I think his strengths are very much there. I do enjoy his jolly, but for me at least, his Eurocrime films are definitely where I would turn if I want. It's my favorite Lenzi. I prefer it over his cannibal films. I prefer it over his westerns, etc., etc. So this is, I think, his fourth or fifth polizioteschi. So he'd already done a few at this point, even though he'd just been directing them for a year or two. He'd already directed things like Milan, as well as Almost Human. So this one's kind of coming mid polizioteschi for him. He'd go on to do quite a few more, including a bunch with Milian. Fortunately, this film is very easy to see. You can watch it easily on Tubi. It has since got a good Blu-ray release. I saw it for the first time when I was kind of doing my initial polizioteschi run about 4 or 5 years ago. And since then, I had not watched it, so I rewatched it again. I enjoyed it back then. I enjoyed it this time as well. So why should you watch this film? Well, it's really a nice little cozy, scuzzy Eurocrime affair. In some ways, it's very typical. I'd say it shares a lot of DNA with Eurocrime, maybe 70 to 75%. And then it deviates a little bit. So in that sense, it's more fun. It blends. It doesn't blend in quite as much. I mean, you have Milian playing a hero, which is not terribly common for him. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. And I've seen the comparison made. I think it originally came from either the Roberto Curti book or someone else comparing this to Western. And if you think about it, it does have a lot in common there. It also has fun stunts. I don't think this has like top tier Eurocrime stunts, but they are fun. And it also has a really, really great soundtrack. In fact, it's one of my favorite soundtracks. And for me personally, the Eurocrime films, as much as I like jollies or spaghetti westerns, they have my favorite soundtracks of them all. And the Italians really were masters of music during this period. And I love the soundtracks for so many of these different films across different genres and stuff. But for me, at least, the Eurocrime soundtracks and kind of the funky beat and stuff, which you get here, this one's done by Franco Michelizzi. It's great. I really love it. I love the main theme and stuff like that. Every time it's going on, it's just, fuck yeah. We're back in kind of like this warm and cozy Eurocrime realm for me. Okay, so a few different things wanted to run through. Milian here plays an unusual character, and in many ways he stands out. I mean, he's a Cuban guy appearing in these Italian films with a lot of different Italian character actors and the occasional American one. For in this film, it's someone like Joseph Cotton. And it's a strange character. He's wearing a lot of strange hats. I'm wearing, I don't have as colorful of hats as Tomas Milian, but this is as good as I'm going to get. He named his character Rambo, which is just kind of funny. Worth noting the timeline on these things. This came out after the book that Rambo is based on came out, but before the Sylvester Stallone movies. So this is before kind of Rambo had all these different cultural connotations. He just thought it was a cool name. It is a cool name. You can see a little hints of like kind of the karate wave and the martial arts wave that was happening with the dojo that we get there. So this is post Bruce Lee. And he really kind of stands out in a way. He stands out. He's wearing different hats. He's dressed differently than the guys he's going against. And in that sense, very, very much kind of like the spaghetti western, The Lone Man, like The Man with No Name, those sorts of films, where he kind of rolls into the town as like this loner, and basically shakes things up, sets a couple gangs against each other. There's definitely hints of Fistful of Dollars, circa Yojimbo, and all the way back to Dashiell Hammond's Red Harvest. Things that were definitely commonly being used as kind of genre tropes. There's at least a couple polizioteschis, I'm forgetting all their names right now, that kind of riff on that Fistful of Dollar themes. This one kind of treads lightly on it, but it doesn't like weigh too heavily. It's certainly not as close as Fistful of Dollars is to Jimbo. He kind of sets the two gangs up against each other, and then they end up allying against him at the end, and he just kind of takes everyone out. So you have Joseph Cotten here, who really kind of sleepwalks through his scenes, but is nonetheless nice to have. He definitely gives it a bit of gravitas. He's basically playing kind of this Godfather type character here. And he's always in like kind of this one set and stuff, so he probably shot his scenes in just a day or two. Nonetheless, it's nice to have someone like that around. Other than that, it's basically Tomas Milian and a bunch of different Italian character actors, and if you've seen a lot of these different Eurocrime polizioteschi, there's a lot of familiar faces in there as well. Lenzi said that he was inspired by Don Siegel. I sort of get that here. Lenzi is definitely a bit of, in my opinion, a worse like overall film director than Don Siegel. Nevertheless, it's nice to have a little bit of different influence rather than I don't know, just your French Connection. I guess he did do Dirty Harry, which is kind of one of the seminal texts for the Eurocrime genre as well. You have some writing that I'm not sure whether to classify it as absolutely terrible writing or terrifically entertaining writing. There's one speech about a hole that I've seen quoted quite a bit. Life is just one hole. You start from a hole, you feed yourself through a hole, you shit from a hole, you finish up in a hole. I don't know if that's great or if that's terrible, but I'm kind of glad it's there. I kind of like it. So that's one of those weird that kind of treads that ground. I don't know if that's a terrible yearbook quote or a wonderful one. I would give thumbs up to anybody who has the cojones to put that as their yearbook quote. And yeah, I would say compared to your average Eurocrime film, this one is a little more on the playful film. Not quite as playful end of things, not quite as insane, doesn't quite go as balls to the wall, especially as a lot of the other Tomas Milian ones. And it's nice to just see him doing a different role. And so he really didn't play a ton of different hero roles in these films. So he had a couple more kind of protagonists, like more sympathetic characters when he was doing spaghetti westerns with Sergio Salima. But really, when he went to these Eurocrime films, he crossed over with something like Almost Human, and a lot of different of the Eurocrime films, he's the one playing the bad guy. I mean, in Almost Human, it's Henry Silva, of all people, who is playing the protagonist cop here. So it's nice to see him doing something a little different. Definitely kind of like this mythological, heroic Western figure here. So once you kind of see that Western comparison, it's kind of hard to unsee. Let's see, what else do we have here? We have a lot of different great faces, if you like Italian genre cinema. Luciano Pigozzi, who is the Italian Peter Lorre. You have the fail son of Joseph Cotten, played by a very Italian Adolfo Lastretti. You have Luciano Catenacci, sorry for the butchering of the names, who is playing one of the big heavies here. So just nice to have all those guys around. If you've seen a lot of these Eurocrime films like I have, you'll recognize a lot of those faces. And really, I think this is a Eurocrime film. If you're into these, you're going to like this one. If you're not, you probably won't. It just has enough of the kind of main course DNA of Eurocrime films running through it that I think if you're not a fan of these films that kind of run through the kind of lawlessness, borderline fascistness of it, you have like references to Private Peace. That being said, it doesn't go full balls to the wall as some of these do. So there is a little bit of mean-spiritedness. In particular, there is Tomas Milian is with a woman, and she ends up getting a bad beating on his behalf, so much so that it kills her. It's a pretty brutal one to watch, but I would say that's a flaw, but I'm not sure. A lot of times those things are those features or those bugs with the Eurocrime genre. Who's to really say, but they're definitely some of the characteristics of it. It's not the best stunts, but they are very good nonetheless. There's a lot of motorcycle stuff here. It calls into mind, at least for me, my favorite of the kind of Lenzi kind of stunt-driven films is Violent Naples. This one also has a lot of motorcycle action, sort of like that one does, where we have these things that are sort of like GoPro shots, where we're attaching the camera to different things, and we're just kind of zooming around. In fact, I think this film in particular has one really, really iconic, incredibly great image where we have Tomas Milian riding out of the back of a truck that just kind of got Molotov cocktails thrown at the back of it, just riding right out of it with the flames in a motorcycle. And, that is like the image to take home from this film. Really, really like that image. It's kind of a little bit of an abbreviated set piece there, but it's still nonetheless fun, some of the road work that's happening there. And again, it's probably not the best Tomas Milian performance, but it is still a very, very enjoyable one, and it's nice to see him doing something a little different. with Lenzi. Not all of them had to be exactly the same or riffing off that same scumbag that he plays in Almost Human. One other point on the Western thing. In Mike Malloy's great Eurocrime documentary, he talks a bit about how, in many ways, the Eurocrime Poliziotteschi films are kind of the successor to the spaghetti Western, and you could definitely see that in this film, too. Milian, of course, was carrying over from a lot of the spaghetti Westerns he'd done and kind of brought him over to Italy in the first place, too. Gialli is the other genre that was kind of going on parallel in the 70s, a little bit before the Poliziotteschi's, but that one I think you have a harder time kind of drawing the clear lines from spaghetti Western to the Gialli. The pacing, I think, is mostly fine. I enjoy kind of just the fast moving here. This doesn't have the hugest set pieces compared to other ones. Let's see, what else do I have? Another moment of brevity is when Tomas Milian gets shot in the chest wearing a bulletproof vest and just kind of gets up and like immediately has a drink after playing dead for just a second to fool the villains. There's a great little moment, set piece at the end that uses a flare gun. He has one of the two boys who idolize him, which is not something you're going to see in every Eurocrime film either. Shoot a flare gun up and he takes out a bunch of guys, so kind of a nicely staged little thing there too. Alright, so who won the movie? Gonna give it to Tomas Milian. Just nice to see him doing something else, wearing all kinds of weird hats. For some reason I want to say he chose his own wardrobe. I have that's definitely like half-assed. I don't know if that's true or not, but it wouldn't shock me as he did have a fair degree of power over these. In fact, he is responsible for naming the character Rambo in the first place, so thumbs up to him there too. Double feature, gonna pick a Lenzi that I watched for the first time a month or two ago, Pistol for 100 Coffins, just to have that kind of like spaghetti Western to Eurocrime mix there. I would say this is probably the more essential film of those, but Pistol 400 Coffins, I think, is the best Lenzi spaghetti Western that I've seen, at least. Rating, 7 out of 10. For me, at least, this is very watchable. It's not totally in the familiar mold like Eyeball. Nonetheless, it is still very much kind of Eurocrime DNA. The main difference is it just feels a little bit more like a Western than those ones. So I don't think this should be the first Lenzi you watch. For me, it's pretty middle-of-the-road Lenzi, but I think just about all Lenzi Eurocrime films are worth watching if you are into Eurocrime Poliziotteschi films. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Let me know how you like this review. Going to be doing some more fun stuff on the show. Going to be talking about a lesser-seen Lenzi Poliziotteschi, Manhunt in the City, which is kind of an unsung one just because it doesn't fit into the Milian-Lenzi collaborations. And it also, it's not part of like that Violent Naples, Violent Rome, those, the Maurizio Merli ones as well. So it kind of fits outside of those too. So sort of like Gang War in Milan, it's kind of tricky to know exactly where to fit it. And it's another portrayal of Henry Silva in a good guy role. So for whatever reason, Lenzi gave Silva two of his more protagonist type roles there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to rewatching that one. That will be another one I haven't seen in 4 or 5 years too. And then I'm going to be talking a bit more about just kind of Lenzi's Poliziotteschi's and doing kind of an episode there where I rank all of them too. So thank you all for tuning in. Let me know how you like this episode. Let me know how you like Syndicate Sadists, where you put that in kind of the Umberto and Lenzi filmography. I'll see y'all next time. Cheers.